Welcome. I'm Halcyon, and this is the Hug Nation broadcast. Today I'm going to talk about Burning Man 2021 and decompression. And wait, was that Burning Man? And what was that thing in the desert? And how are we all processing and evolving from it and making sense of it? So, Burning Man was many things this year. It was not an official gathering in the Black Rock Desert, but it was a gathering in the Black Rock Desert. Depending on who you ask, between 10 and 20,000 people went out to practice what they've learned, to come together and form a temporary city this year without any sort of formal organization. In addition to the physical gathering, there was digital things happening. There was the virtual reality world in VRCVR, and there was the Sparkleverse and other realms that had things going on in the digital world. I only participated a little bit early in the week, and so I'm not going to speak too deeply to that. I did, however, head out to the Black Rock Desert and kind of had my mind blown. I was expecting a camp out for burners. In fact, when people asked me, "Oh, are you going to Burning Man?" I said, there is no Burning Man this year. I'm going to a camp out in the Black Rock Desert with fellow burners. And honestly, I regret that answer because I think it was a missed opportunity. I was so focused on telling people that thing that we're going to do isn't Burning Man that I lost the opportunity to say, hey, regardless of what we call this thing, thousands of people are coming together to have an experience, to cultivate community, to practice the 10 principles. And if we are coming together to practice 10 principles, then I feel like I have a lot to say and share and lots of experience and lots of ideas about how to articulate what the 10 principles are and how to practice them and how our community can quickly make sense of itself and all these things, and how to talk about gifting and how to practice gifting. And, that's one of my true passions is acculturating and helping people to, as quick as possible, go from mind blown by the Burning Man experience to true participation and true recognition of how the 10 principles play a role, how they can help us, and how we can play the biggest role possible in the magic of the city and the community and the events, and the recognition that we are the artists that make that, whether that be the art that we create in our sculpture or events or food or massage or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that recognition of what we are as artists is so broad and diverse. And I think, it was a missed opportunity for me to not have that conversation, regardless of what we technically called the gathering. I think I was afraid of people believing and thinking that they were going to go out to what they have heard people talk about as Burning Man and arrive in a place that does not have the same agreements. And I talked about that leading up to this, how that was one of my big fears, is that we did not have the same social contract in place. There was not this line in the sand, as Danger Ranger would say, that we had to cross that line and agree to the 10 principles and collectively agree that we were going to follow a different set of rules and guidelines and ideals than the default world. And so because of that fear and that hesitation, I was maybe expecting more people than... I was expecting there to be quite a few people there that were there to check it out, that had no allegiance to the 10 principles, had no real, that were going to do whatever they wanted. If they wanted to commodify things, fine. If they wanted to be a spectator, fine. And I didn't experience that at all. I experienced every bit as much of a commitment to the 10 principles in the Black Rock Desert this year as I have every year that I've attended Burning Man. So in that regards, this was a very Burning Man experience for me. And, you know, I'm embarrassed, I guess, that I had these doubts, that I had fears, that I questioned the way people would act. Because I guess I was thinking I knew the people that believed themselves to be burners would act and behave and promote the culture. I guess I just felt like without any sort of formal structure, who's to say how far beyond the community people would show up, and how impossible it would be to police or to guide people towards the 10 principles when there was no agreement to do so. And what I experienced was everyone that I saw there and interacted with was choosing actively to create a Burning Man community and to adhere to the 10 principles. Now, what was exciting about this is that a huge number of people that were there for the first time, and whether they were locals that, you know, never wanted to pay for it or couldn't afford it, or were people who could never get tickets. I mean, this was really the most radically inclusive Burning Man in 30 years. Anybody who wanted to go could go. There was no barrier of wealth, no barrier of resources, no barrier of trying to get tickets or connections. Anybody that could get out there, whether they could have gas in their car or hitchhike or whatever, if you could get out there, you were a part of this year's gathering. And that has really never been the case for as long as I've been participating. My first year was 98, and that year you had to have a ticket. And so I guess I was worried that with that low barrier and all these newbies, there would be a huge amount of ignorance about the 10 principles and maybe lack of care or lack of motivation to be good burners. And I did not experience that at all. I felt like that there was a very strong desire for new people to have a Burning Man experience and to really understand what the 10 principles were and to participate and to really play their role in the creation of the city, which is what makes the magic. What makes the magic of a Burning Man event, of a 10 principles event, is that it is not something produced by people that has producers and spectators. You know, you don't go to check out your favorite band or check out the art. You go to bring and create and participate and help with every role, whether that be the party planner or the janitor or the medic or the psychologist. You play every role in the community. And it's that co-ownership that makes it so, I think, fulfilling. And that's what I saw. I saw a massive pride in the event, maybe more than ever, because it did not have that underlying organization from the Burning Man organization. And so there was this additional pride that, whoa, we did this, you know, mom and dad are out of town, and look what we did without them. And I think that was a thought that really was coming up for a lot of people, and a lot of conversations I had was like, wow, this is impressive. You know, look what happens when there's no rulers, when there's no parents, when there's nobody enforcing anything. There's just a bunch of people who've come together with some shared ideals and principles. I felt very proud of us. And I think I heard a lot of people say that. Wow, I'm proud of us. I do think it's important to keep in mind that this thing that happened was, in context, something that has been training for decades. I kept thinking like it's like, remember your training. like an old 80s movie or something. You're like, look, we have been practicing creating this community. We've been practicing following these principles for many, many years. And so the collected wisdom and the collected momentum of these practices allowed us to create this thing even when there was no formal structure behind it. Do I think that that means that we no longer need, the organization, that we've graduated? No. And even if people do feel like they've graduated, great. But I don't think that takes away from the value of the school. If a bunch of people, because, oh my gosh, the hospital is closed because of a pandemic, and we find ourselves in the middle of nowhere, and we successfully, perform surgery, we don't say, oh, we don't need hospitals or med school anymore. We say, wow, the hospitals and the med school work great. Look at how well it trained us. We were able to do this on our own. Now, whether you want to return to the hospital or not, I guess that's up to you. I feel like the things that are present in Black Rock City as a structured, organized event are something different and special, and in addition to this self-organized experience that happened, which is one reason why I've been hesitant to call this thing Burning Man. Certainly I have not been calling it Black Rock City, because I feel like what I experienced in the desert this year was absolutely a Burning Man experience, but definitely not Black Rock City. And I'm proud of both of those things. I'm proud of being a part of the community of burners that does regionals and gatherings of every sort. And I'm proud of Black Rock City and the absolute pinnacle of expression that happens in science, in philosophy, in yoga, in music, in electronics, in all of the ways that people just push things to their limit in Black Rock City is, something that I'm intensely proud that I'm a part of. It's one of the things that I want to show my parents. I showed my mom years ago, and I'm hoping to show my dad next year, Black Rock City. Now, would I have the same feeling of showing him this Renegade Burn experience? No. This Renegade Burn experience was a profound and beautiful expression of what well-trained anarchists can create when they have enough experience around how to do this. And they can train the new people, and they can create this thing. But the Black Rock City experience is a whole different level of magic. Now, that isn't to say that the Renegade Burn over time couldn't evolve to something like Black Rock City. But I would guess that to do so, it would require more and more organization and become more and more like what the Burning Man organization is now. So both of these things are beautiful. I hope that they both learn from each other, and I hope that they both recognize the value in coexisting. One of the things I was fearful is a possible division, between many things, between people who have different attitudes about medicine and science, and people who have divisions about the Burning Man organization's role, and the lack of organization, and there definitely sure is division, but I hope that this becomes something that allows us to come together and to have respect for one another. I think that's what I heard from most people I talked to. Was not a screw you, we don't need you anymore, or how dare you do this without us, but more of like, look at this. Looks like we do need this from you, and looks like this did help this. I was planning on talking more about decompression and less about the event itself. So, but there was so many things that were really special and one of a kind for me. After this was my 24th burn, I think, and maybe 23rd. I don't know about math. And it was 2007 was the first year that I brought the Hugmobile out there, and the plan is for this to be the last year that we bring out my pink winged motorhome. But this was the very first year that, because there's no rules or infrastructure, we were able to drive around the Hugmobile as a art car. Normally, you have to be approved by the Department of Mutant Vehicles, and the vehicle has to be significantly changed so it is no longer identifiable at what it is at the root, which is, a Winnebago. And that's just not the case. We just have a cool paint job and fur on the inside. But this year, we were able to drive the Hugmobile around and go to the ring around, the Man area on Burn Night, and take the Hugmobile over to the Temple Burn. And let me just comment a little bit on those two things, because those are areas where I was worried that because of the constraints placed on this event because of Bureau of Land Management, things like, no freestanding art, no structures that aren't shade structures, no fire. It really discouraged people from creating art. It discouraged people from having burns, if not straight out forbid it. It discouraged, a lot of the things that I think make Black Rock City. That's one of the big, things in my head of why I appreciate them both. However, incredible ingenuity to the people that found ways to create a burn experience and a temple experience. The burn experience, you may have seen people showing videos of it. Burn Night, there was a drone show where, I don't know, a huge number of drones had a synchronized performance that began as this organic swirl of, looked like animals or insects or birds. And then it became a massive man that spun around, arms up. And then as the color changed in it, and then it kind of, animated as if it was burning and then fell. And it was incredible. Honestly, I had doubts, the technology of drone art, for some reason, it chills me a little bit, but this was incredible. It united the community. We were able to have as close to a burn experience as you could have without fire, I think. And it gave me chills. I was laughing and, tearing up to a degree. So that was bravo to the drone team that worked within our constraints and created something that was like nothing that's been done before, and yet very much within the energy and intention of what we've always created and what makes the city what it is and makes the experience what it is. So bravo. The other one was the temple, which I had no expectations that there was even going to be a temple. I thought maybe there people would put out like a whiteboard and say tape your memories to this or something. But there was a gorgeous temple with beautiful shade fabrics and raw wood areas that you could write things on, and pieces of paper that you could write things on, and then filled with gorgeous recollections of people lost. And I had multiple experiences there where I just fully surrendered into emotion and grief in ways that I had not since the beginning of the pandemic, I don't think. And then we had a burn night where they disassembled the wooden pieces that they'd constructed and put them into like a burn barrel type things. This was approved by BLM, so much gratitude to BLM for understanding and working with the needs of the community. And on burn night, I had an incredibly deep, powerful, cathartic cry. That was something, there's been a lot of difficulty and loss and death over the last year. And I feel like there was big pieces of that I had yet to let go and let myself feel. And so I'm so grateful to have this temple experience so that I was able to have that. That again was I didn't think that was going to be a part of this year's Black Rock Desert Camping experience. And it's one of the things that made this into a much more of a Burning Man experience. Maybe absolutely made it into a Burning Man experience. There already are gatherings that happen in the Black Rock Desert that are not the official Burning Man. 4th of July, actually, am I not supposed to say that? Other times of year when people gather. I think there's another one that's happening next month. Without knowing all factors, I kind of hope that one of those events ends up becoming this big grand renegade one, and that Black Rock City returns with this continued learning and lessons of more formal organization. There's so many reasons why formal organization and safety and city planning is an art and is something that allows for things that cannot happen in full chaos. And there's so many things, magic, that can happen in full chaos. I mean, there was a few times this week that I heard about where things broke down, whether that was, a porta potty that was left and how the community dealt with this MOOP. There was a sound camp that had real challenges with the neighbors. And in both these situations, there was nobody, no rangers, no grand authority to problem solve and fix it. And yet, somehow, things are figured out and have been being figured out. And I think that that's a testimony to what can happen when people, anarchy in the beautiful sense, not in the anarchy as like do anything, whatever, whenever, but in the, if people agree to a no central rulership, can we depend on our humanity for things to work? So I'm leading up to it, I was very driven by this fear of missing out. This fear of like, Burning Man is so important to me that I feel like I historically need to see what's going to happen out there. And I'm so glad I went because it was so much more than I thought it was going to be. It was so much more of a Burning Man experience. I'm still hesitant to call it Burning Man. It felt like a regional. It felt like there was a heavy focus on the art of party, the art of music, the art of food as a gift. So there's tons of gifting, but in a very select realm, I think, of socializing and celebration, partially because I think that's what we needed in what's been happening, over the last year and a half or 2 years. Dear Lord, how long? Year and a half? Year and a half. And partially because of the restrictions placed on us by Bureau of Land Management. But I'm so grateful that I got to experience those things and get recharged by creativity and by ingenuity and by conversations and depth of the miracles of my fellow humans. And so as I'm thinking about the decompression that I'm going through right now, I'm honestly I'm finding it very difficult. The decompression was harder this year than sometimes in years past. I think there's a couple of reasons for that. One is the pandemic. While I was in the desert, I was not thinking about pandemic much. I was outdoors. I was dealing with masks and we had some rules about no one allowed in the RV except for a couple close friends that are vaccinated. But really, because of the restrictions on this outdoor event, I very rarely was thinking about pandemic issues whatsoever. And so to return to the default world where not only are the social love bond interactions absent that we get used to in amongst burners. But in addition to that is all of the additional things like, masks and differing agreements or differing opinions about vaccination and mask wearing and the political things that have made our landscape so kind of frustrating and challenging, regardless of what you believe. And so to return to that, in addition, like normally the return from the bliss of community amongst burners to the default world is rough because you're so used to just being supported and you're so used to your expression being celebrated and your vulnerability being embraced. And the default world doesn't do all those things. So not only do we have that jarring experience, but plus all the pandemic stuff. And I think that has been tough for me this year. But when I'm reminding myself now, which I try to remind myself every year, is that instead of recoiling and shrinking from this dark and scary and cold world, it's important to remember the responsibility. If you have been exposed to this level of community, whether that is through online worlds or physical experiences in the Black Rock Desert, whatever you have been blessed to experience, where you have got to experience the 10 principles, you've got to experience radical inclusion and radical self-expression, and you get to feel yourself alive in this way. That is such a rare gift. Most people live their whole lives without ever getting a taste of that kind of supportive freedom. That if you got a taste of that, you have a responsibility to not shut down and wait for the next opportunity a year from now. You have an obligation to push yourself to be that person whenever you can, and to look for the places where you can be a little bit more brighter, where you can be a little bit more supportive, where you can be a little bit more communicative and complimentary, to just say good morning to people and hello, and dress a little more fun, look people in the eye. The reason that I've been doing these love mornings every day for the last 6 months is for this, to recognize that we have an opportunity, if not an obligation, to be the role models for the kind of interactions that you see in the Black Rock Desert. And so in the Black Rock Desert, or in Burning Man communities online or in physical ways, it's the place where we practice. It's the place where it is so easy to do it there, because everybody's going to love you and support you, and they got your back, and no one's going to laugh at you or snicker or look at you funny when you allow your creativity out, when you allow your compassion and your kindness to just flow and gift. In the default world, that's not the case. And so that's when we have to put on our warrior stance and have the courage to be creative, to be kind, to be connecting, even when not everybody's going to reflect it back to us. Because what if you connect with somebody that's just hungry for it? What if you say, hello, good morning, I love those shoes, to someone who has been convinced that they need to be living in a bubble, afraid of the world, and then boom, you crack it. Give them a little crack. Maybe a big crack, so big that then they start saying, good morning, I love your shoes. And now the ripples are spreading. Now the world is changing. Now you are becoming an activist in the world simply by letting your light shine. That is how we deal with decompression. That is how we honor the gift. So whether you were in the desert or online or simply reflecting on your own path in this world, I hope that you recognize that you are the medicine the world needs. Thank you. I love you.